Good morning. Welcome. Why is it saying try another way of going live through during broadcast? Good morning. Welcome to the meditation series starting on this Wednesday, June 26th at 10 o'clock in the morning. It'll be broadcast every week on Wednesday between 10 and 11 o'clock. The focus this meditation series will be on quantum breath meditation, which is a specific kind of meditation, and I'll explain as we go along. First, let's start with the basic premise of what is meditation. A lot of people have different ideas about meditation, and all of those ideas are good, but they are not truly meditation. For example, prayer or visualization or contemplation or gardening or sports. People go into some kind of zone during that time. However, that is not truly the meditation what I'm going to be talking about. Those activities are still at the level of mind. The goal of meditation in the traditional sense of definition of meditation is to go beyond the mind, beyond the chaos of the mind, beyond the day-to-day reverberations of the mind, from the day-to-day ups and downs which are created by the mind. It is to reach a place where the mind is not that active. That means there is a gap between two thoughts, and the gap is where the thought maker is, which is your higher self. Some people might call that higher self as soul or Atma, or many different definitions of that field of consciousness can be defined as. However, we will not go into the nitty-gritty of defining that field. We'll just say that we want to reach a place beyond the mind so that it is not what we are thinking or doing, it is about not doing. It is about being silent when we reach that space where the higher self or the true consciousness is. That is the true definition of meditation. And incidentally, that is the purpose of the entire science of yoga. Yoga is not about physical postures, it's not about breathing techniques, it is not about becoming a pretzel. Yoga is doing all those things to reach a state of silence. And that those stages are important, but if you can reach that space of silence without those activities, it is still the same goal. So the goal of yoga is to be in meditation, be in a place which is beyond the active state of the mind. Why is mind so bad for us? I don't want to say bad, but mind is a activity oriented part of us. So, mind is always doing one thing. There's only one thing which mind does is thinking. When we are thinking and we are in this world where we are distracted by uh, media, by social media, by all kind of activities, we get in a chaotic state. We don't know what to bring into our body and what not to bring. How much impressions do we bring through the faculty of mind becomes very confusing. So when we go beyond the mind, we are slowing down the activity of the mind as to receive those impressions from the external environment. I define mind as a drunken monkey who has been bitten by a scorpion, because that is what the state of mind is, that we are always thinking about the same 100 things throughout the day. That is the irony, that we never get to solve those problems because we are thinking at the level of mind, and mind keeps on guiding us to think more and more and more. The meditation is about unthinking, about not doing, about being silent. So how do we slow down the activity of the mind is the main question, because if we are going beyond the mind, mind is like a cloud in front of the sun. We cannot see the sun if the cloud is there. So how do we remove that cloud? How do we remove the chaotic activity of the mind? How do we slow it down so there is a gap between the two thoughts, which is the activity of the mind? And the whole science of yoga has been developed to do that, to do just that. What is that activity we can do through certain do's and don'ts, similar to 10 commandments. We can do same by doing certain postures. We can do it by doing certain breathing exercises. We can do it by focusing on a subject, on an object, or we can do it by sitting and withdrawing our senses from the external environment. So there are many ways we can reach that place where mind's activity is slowed down. So this particular approach to meditation, called quantum breath meditation, has been developed by our center in Flagler Beach, Florida. It is called quantum breath meditation. And it is not any high-powered meditation or anything. It just means that we use the faculty of breathing to slow down the activity of the mind. It is a tantric yoga technique which has been described in yoga literature for a long time. So let's describe what the actual technique is. The technique consists of sitting in a comfortable position, either in a chair or on the floor in a lotus position. It doesn't matter what position you are in. The position which we choose is to not go to sleep. So lying down is not a good position for doing this meditation, because our body, if it is tired, will go to sleep. Any posture is good. Sitting in a chair with a back support so that your back or the spine is straight is the first requirement. You can sit on the floor, on a cushion, in a lotus position, against the wall, whatever works for you, that is okay. Once we have done that, we do few postures just to stretch the body and remove any kinks or anything which have been present after sleep. And we'll talk about all that as far as when to do it, how long to do it as we go along during this series. And we'll also talk about the benefits of meditation So we'll go in a progressive manner, in a very organized fashion, so that you can understand this process of meditation. So posture I've already described. After doing a few physical postures just to stretch the body, and whatever works for you, you want to lie down and do knee to chest position, you want to stand up, stretch your arms in a half moon posture, or do a twist posture, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you can sit comfortably in whatever position you choose for about half an hour. The second part of this is to do certain breathing exercises, and that is what I'm going to focus today on, is to teach you the first breathing exercise for this meditation. And we do these breathing exercises to progressively slow down the activity of the mind. So let's jump right into the technique of breathing. We all breathe. We breathe anywhere between 12 to 16 times a minute. If we are anxious, if we are in a hurry, we breathe much faster. If we are calm down and relaxing, we breathe lesser amount of times per minute. Yoga teaches us that number of breaths per minute is directly related to the activity of the mind. So if I can reduce the number of breaths per minute by a breathing technique, then activity of the mind will slow down automatically. Remember a time if you were in extreme joy and you suddenly find yourself not breathing, because that is the time you are not thinking of anything else. You are in the moment and you have forgotten to breathe, and you are enjoying that moment to the fullest extent. So I'm not saying that we need to be not breathing completely, but reducing the number of breaths per minute will decrease the activity of the mind correspondingly. So the first technique we do in breathing is called the yoga breathing or yogic breathing, which is a 3-part breath. And I'll demonstrate to you, and it is very easy. A lot of athletes do this unknowingly because they want to slow down the activity of the mind when they are in extreme games, because they want to be present in the moment, and mind prevents them from being in the moment. So they have learned how to do these breathing exercises, which we are going to practice in this meditation course. So the first breath is the yogic breath, and yogic breath is a 3-part breath, which is breathing into the abdomen. If I put my left hand on my stomach and I take a deep breath, so that I'm taking the breath into the lungs, which is pushing the diaphragm down, and my stomach blows out. That is the first part of the breath. So it will be something like this. That is the first part of the breath. The second part is I breathe into the middle lobes of my lungs, which is elevating the clavicle. Now I'm insufflating the middle part of the lungs. And the third part is that I elevate the clavicle even more, and I'm in the third part of breath, which is filling in the upper part of the lung. So think of a bottle in which you're pouring water. The lower part of the lungs first, and then followed by middle part, and then the upper part. So it will look something like this. And I breathe out in the reverse manner, lowering my clavicle, compressing the middle part of the chest or the intercostal muscles, and then the diaphragm to push the air out of the lungs. So because of doing the 3-part breath, you will notice if you do it for a period of time, then you will you will find that you are only breathing 8 times a minute, because it has slowed down your breathing considerably. So let's practice that. Take a deep breath in. You will notice that as you practice this breath, the last part of your breath, your diaphragm is engaged. So this is also called diaphragmatic breathing. And most athletes, singers, performers have learned the diaphragmatic breathing because they can expel the breath in a very controlled manner, so they can talk or perform at a much higher level. So as we make our diaphragm stronger, we will realize that our breath exhalation is becoming longer and longer and longer. You cannot control your inhalation, but you can control your exhalation, because diaphragm is a voluntary muscle, so you can control it. So I can, once you're practiced it enough, then you will breathe in, so I'm visualizing that when I breathe in, my belly button is being pulled forward, and when I'm exhaling, my belly button is touching my spine. That is a good visualization to prolong the breath. So this is called yogic breath, or a 3-part breathing, or a diaphragmatic breathing. This is a much better way to breathe whenever we get a chance. It doesn't have to be any special occasion. During the whole day, if we get 5 minutes to do deep breathing, we are opening up our parts of the lungs which are not used in a shallow breath, and most of us breathe very shallowly. So if we do this 3-part breathing, we will realize that our mind activity, even during the daytime, is becoming less and less. When the mind activity is becoming less and less, there is more silence between the thoughts, and we become much more creative, because creativity comes during the period of silence, not during the period of activity. Because during activity, we cannot think about creativity. We can only think it when we are silent. So practice this today, and over the next week, keep practicing this particular breath. That is your homework for this next week. The next breath which we are going to talk about is called alternate nostril breathing. So alternate nostril breathing is a very powerful breath which can balance the left and right side of the brain. As we know that our left side or right side brain is more active in different parts of the during different parts of the day and during different activities. To balance this, we do alternate nostril breathing. This is a tantric yoga technique where we are actually using the chi or the prana to balance out the left and right side of the brain activity. We become much more balanced rather than being in either left brain or right brain. This particular breathing technique has been investigated tremendously even in modern science to show the physiological benefits of this breath. And we'll talk about those benefits in one of these sessions. But today we'll go over the technique of what is done during the alternate nostril breathing. Remember, the chi or the prana crossover at the level of the base of the neck. The left nose controls the right side of the brain, and the right nostril controls the left side of the brain. If you have ever seen a medical insignia, you see that two serpents crossing and going across at the nape of the neck. That is exactly what is represented as yogic technique of alternate nostril breathing. So this is a 5,000 years old technique, and it is very beneficial. I'll talk about the physiological effects later. So let's jump right into it. We start by closing our right nostril gently, not pushing it, but just gently enough to obstruct the flow of the air. We take a deep breath in through the left nostril, just like the breath we have just finished. We take a deep breath through the left nostril. We close the left nostril with the index finger and breathe out slowly through the right nostril. We breathe in through the right nostril. We close the right nostril and breathe out slowly through the left nostril. Again, breathe in through the left nostril. Close the left nostril and breathe out through the right nostril. Breathe in through the right nostril. Close the right nostril and breathe out slowly through the left nostril using the diaphragmatic breath. Breathe in through the left nostril. Close the left nostril and breathe out slowly through the right nostril. Breathe in through the right nostril. Close the right nostril and breathe out slowly using the diaphragmatic breath through the left nostril. And we continue this breath over a period of 3 to 4 minutes. Now, as you are taking deep breaths and alternating nostril, you will realize that your rate of breath per minute has gone down to 5 or 6 breaths per minute. The advanced yogis only breathe 1 breath per minute, and that's why their mind is so quiet, because they have controlled that breath tremendously. So the goal for you is not to breathe 1 time a minute. Goal for you is to breathe as less number of times as possible, which will be different for each individual and the level of practice. So it is not a competition. I'm not telling you anything to compete. It is about having your own personal growth. As you practice more and more, you will find that your number of breaths per minute are decreasing consistently. Now, when I started 20 years ago, I was, before I did the deep yogic breath, I was breathing something like 12 to 14 per minute. And then it became down to 10, and then 9, and then 8, and then alternate nostril breathing brought it down to 8. And over the years, now I can go down to about 3 or 4 breaths per minute. That is what keeps your activity of the mind lower. So you can be much more creative because there is a gap between your thoughts. So that is the alternate nostril breathing. Now that is your second homework, is to do the alternate nostril breathing. And I'm not very familiar with Facebook Live. I hope you can watch this over if you have any questions, and if you record it or if you save it, then you will be able to watch it at a later stage during this week if you have any questions. Or you can just text me, send a message, and I'll help you with that particular breath. But these are the essentials before we can go into the technique of meditation. I want to see that your number of breaths has fallen down to about 6 per minute. Even if it is 8 per minute, we are going to go into meditation, but the more you practice, there are 2 things which are required for any meditation practice. One is persistence, which means practice. And a lot of people tell me, I don't have time to do this. Actually, those people need this more than the people who have time. The people who don't have time are the people who have not organized their time properly. So they need it more so that they can organize their time properly. So that is not an excuse that I don't have time. When you start doing these practices, you will find you have so much more time available to you, you don't know what to do with yourself. That is what I want you to reach. We don't have to do things all the time. We need to be able to sit and be in silence so that we can explore the nature of consciousness, which we'll talk about in the coming sessions. So once again, your homework is going to be yogic breath. What I would suggest is that you do 5 minutes every time you get a chance. 5 minutes of yogic breath, 5 minutes of alternate nostril breathing, and do it several times a day. You will find that suddenly your anxiety level has gone down. Suddenly your sleep is much better. Suddenly your relationships have started to improve because you are not reactive and you become more responsive. So all these things will happen. And then again, we will discuss this over the period of time. But right now, I want you to practice this as much as possible so that we can start working on advanced techniques next week. Once again, I appreciate your participation in this meditation course and the people who are present in the yoga studio right now. I thank them very much for being here, and we will see you next Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.